Josh and I became friends 10 years ago. He's from Boise, Idaho. He grew up as one of 5 Jewish students in his entire state school, which had thousands of people in it. He experienced anti-Semitism as a child, and that really fortified his personality and his drive to be a strong Jew, to be a very openly proud Jew. His tattoos were Magen David, they were, Lion of David, they were all Lion people, and they were all things that really represented him. He got a Golani tree for his unit with a sword in the middle of it. He grew up in a very, very small town, loved shooting. He started shooting when he was a 3-year-old child. His grandfather was a colonel in the army, and he taught him how to be a sniper. He said he had a really good shoot, and he said one day you should go to the army and you should be a sniper. And that always kind of stayed with him. It was always part of his goals. All he really wanted was to serve the people of Israel. He loved Israel as a country. When he was in school, when he was 19 years old, the first time he visited Israel. And he just fell in love with the country. He loved the beaches and the places and the people and just everyone. He just really felt like he was at home. And from that moment, he had already started his plan to draft. He started filling out paperwork and doing all of the things. And they sent him home and they said, we don't believe you're Jewish. You come from the most random place in America. There are hardly any Jews there. We don't believe it. We need proof. And they sent him back and they sent him back. And he eventually had to do a formal conversion service in America to prove that he was Jewish. All of those things were not enough. He just kept coming back. He persevered. He really knew he wanted it. This was like his lifelong dream. In 2014, his friend Max Steinberg was killed in Sukkot. And from that moment, he basically said, none of my friends are going into war without me anymore. If there's wars going on in Israel, I'm going to be there defending my brothers. And in 2016 was the last time he attempted, and he said, this is it. I'm going with a one-way ticket. I'm not leaving without that uniform. I'm doing this. And eventually in 2016, they accepted him, and I met him at our dinner that we did together. We did Machal. We drafted together. We lived in a very similar area and basically went through our services. We were essentially each other's friends who turned into family.
So what year was it that you actually went over and met him?
We met in 2016.
This is 2016, right?
It was the year that we both drafted. And we drafted in December of 2016. We had done a 30-day Mechina before that, all together. And we'd become a bit of a family. Like home away from home, all people who were lone soldiers came together and we became a family. Drafted together to Mechbalon, where we learned Hebrew. Josh came with 0 Hebrew, absolutely nothing. It was very entertaining, but he had the drive, and he started on level 1. He started learning Aleph Bet, really the most basic of the basic. And he worked his way up, and he was always driven, and he always wanted to pursue that and get better with his Hebrew so he could go up in the army ranks, so he could do as much as he could, really fulfill this purpose that he believed he had. And he drafted after Mechina, we drafted, he went to Golani, and he became a sniper. He fulfilled his lifelong dream, his grandfather's dream for him. That was like a pivotal moment for him, really the beginning of his active service. In his service, during his time at Golani, he was on the fence of Gaza during the 2018-2019 riots. Very, very intensive riots where there were thousands of people storming the fence at a time, and these snipers were based on the border. And it was a very difficult time. So he really saw the meaning in his service, the meaning in his job, to be staring at thousands of people and to really be finding the terrorists within those groups, be finding the people who were starting all these riots and pushing people. He really just found a lot of meaning during that time. And after his service, he worked in the old city. He was always defending, always protecting. He was defending people in the old city of Yerushalayim in areas that were a bit more hostile, a bit more likely to have things going on, and events. Was always ready to go. And even after that, he went to Africa and he taught militias to fight against Boko Haram. He had his way, he would have gone in with them, but he decided he wanted to come back. If he's protecting anyone, he's going to come back and protect Israel and come back. It was very important to either protect people or to teach people how to protect themselves. It was really, really part of who he was as a person. If he can't protect himself, it's going to teach you exactly how to do it so that you can protect yourself and protect your families. The night before October 7th, he went to the Nova Festival with a group of friends. Most of them had tickets, a couple of them snuck in without. He was one of the people without a ticket, and they danced. They had a great time for a couple of hours until about 2 in the morning. He was spotted by a security guard, and they were like, "Hey, we know you. You're definitely not meant to be here. You need to get out." And most of the time, he would have fought back, and he would have said, "No, I'll get back in. I'll go. There'll be a hole in the fence. We can get in there." Whatever. For some reason, this time he didn't, and he decided to just go back home. He went back to Rachelie. And the next morning got a phone call from his mum. He realised what had gone on, and he realised that leaving that party and being kicked out had saved his life. And he was mobilised almost immediately on October 7th. He went up north to the border of Lebanon and was waiting to be called in with his unit. They kind of waited there for a bit. He was always moving. The second they went into Lebanon, the second his group had finished, he went to find a new unit. Wanted to go into Gaza, wanted to make sure that the people he was with had someone watching their back. If there was someone going to be with him, it was be him. He was going to protect them and make sure that everyone was okay. And there were unbelievable moments of courage and of heroism where there were so many people he saved. And we see that afterwards, but he was just an amazing protector. And he never felt that his duty was finished. He never thought, all right, after this round I'll go home, after this round I'll be done. Every single time he finished, he found a new group to go to, a new area, a new mission. He did medical evacuations. He did really anything and everything. He just wanted to help. He just wanted to be there as part of the protection of Israel and the people of Israel, and that was his main duty, his mission in life. He met Karen about a year into the war. They met online, and they decided to go out just before he went into Gaza for another 5-week period. And their relationship started instantly. Their connection was undeniable, and from there they had this beautiful partnership that really brought light into his life during such a dark time. They had plans to move to the Otef, the most vulnerable part of Israel after October 7th, but he knew he wanted to be part of the rebuilding and repopulating, and that is where he wanted to build his family and his life and have a home. So they planned on living in the Otef. They have a dog named Handa. They planned on getting married and having 3 children. Unfortunately, a year after they met each other, a year after their first date, they were separated. Unfortunately, in his time during the war, he had experienced so many tragic and terrible experiences. They really, really stood with him. He really had so many visible scars that most people wouldn't have been able to see. We would have chats about it sometimes, and he would tell me about things that were going on. And he had a really good support system. He had people to talk to. He had his girlfriend. He had many friends. But those things don't just go away. Talking about it does not just fix everything that's going on. And he went to go get help. He really wanted to change and to be better and to have a future. He saw the way that this was impacting his life, and he really wanted to have a life after this. And unfortunately, 2 weeks after he left his reserve duty, he succumbed to PTSD. His friends instantly mobilised because we found out that he wasn't going to be receiving a military burial, and to us that was absurd. How could this man who had done 748 days of active warfare not going to be considered as a hero of Israel? He should be buried with the heroes of Israel. That's who he was, who he is. And instantly we started talking to whoever we could. We started pulling in politicians, really any connection that we had. And unfortunately he wasn't allowed to be buried on Har Herzl. He was buried in the civilian cemetery in Beersheba. We did a beautiful service for him, surrounded by hundreds of lone soldiers that he had trained over 10 years. People that he served with after October 7th and before. Hundreds and hundreds of soldiers. It was about the largest military, non-military funeral that we had had. And although we're very disappointed with how his burial turned out and the way that things ended with Josh's story. We don't think that it's the end. There are a lot of people who are waiting for this status to change. Israelis, that their families are waiting for the status to change, and we believe that we're going to be able to change some of those things. And Josh would have wanted that. He would have wanted people who were struggling to get help. He would have wanted people that are struggling to be supported by the country, not just by their friends, not just by their families.
So you were in touch with him while he was in Gaza and you knew what he was going through?
Yes, he would call me sometimes when he had a bit of a break or he was able to have a lie down for a bit of time. So he would call me and we'd sit and chat and he'd talk about things he was going through, he would talk about things just running through his mind and the things he experienced.
When had you last spoken to him before you heard that he'd
I spoke
died?
to him 3 days before he had passed away. We'd spoken on the Friday, and he sent me a voice note that unfortunately I didn't get to until after he had passed away. I was on a flight bringing a group of birthright kids to Israel for the first time, and in my layover I found out about his death, and immediately went to go be with our family, with our group of friends that we had come such a time ago.
And how did it hit you when you first heard that news that he'd died?
I didn't really believe it. It was quite a shock for me. Granted, I was in an airport with 30 kids, but Josh was someone who saw himself as invincible. He saw himself as someone who was going to live forever. He went through so many things in his lifetime. He had got in a sick rural area with typhus in Africa. He had so many near calls in Gaza and in Syria and in Lebanon. Really, in all of his time, not just in the army, there were so many things that could have gone wrong. And he believed that Hashem put him on this earth for a purpose, and the only way he was going to leave it is when Hashem was ready for it. And when he finished his mission and his purpose in life, and he really believed that his purpose in life was to protect Israel, protect his people, and be a strong advocate for the Jewish people, and teach people how to be strong and open about their Jewish values and Jewish lives.
Now, we here in Australia, we couldn't be further away from Israel. I mean, we say that we feel for them and we're close to them and we support them, but when you actually know somebody who's died as a result of the war, if not in the war, I mean, it must really bring it home to you, the peril that Israel faces and that the individuals there live with.
I think I've always had a very strong connection with Israel anyway, and I've always felt that Yom Hazikaron is as important as Yom HaShoah and every other memorial day that we have. Just because we're in Australia, we're thousands of miles away, but that does not mean that we're not connected. It doesn't mean that we don't feel what our brothers are feeling. I really feel that we come from we're one home, we're one soul, and we feel when our brothers are in danger, we feel when things are going on, and this is no different.
Right.
I may have known him very personally, but I met people who went to his memorial who had never heard of him. They had been in Israel for 2 weeks, just made Aliyah, and they said this is the epitome of lone soldiers, the epitome of new immigrants moving to the country and giving all that they can to it. And we want to be there for him, and we want to make sure that people remember who he is. And I thought that was unbelievable. Someone who I've known him for 10 years. To me it was a no-brainer. But the people who just heard about him on the bus and decided to turn around and go and fight with us, it's pretty amazing.
How did it come about that you're lighting a candle on Monday night? How did that happen?
I will take any opportunity to talk about Josh, honestly.
Right.
He was an amazing person, and I believe that everyone should know about him. I think the country, Israel knows about him. Everyone does over there. I think overseas we should know about it, and we see a lot of value in lone soldiers. I think we send ourselves and we send our children to the army, and all of these things we believe in so deeply. I think it's amazing to remember the people that came before us, remember their missions, remember who they were and what they sacrificed, because ultimately that's what we're doing too. We are the same people. We're all very, very similar. We all just do it in different ways. We come from different points of the earth. But we all end up in Israel somehow. And he was just the epitome of a lone soldier. He is the classic lone soldier.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think, having said what you said, do you think the army or the government or the country as a whole gives enough support to the lone soldiers and to the mental experience or the mental toll of serving in the army?
I think Israel has gotten a lot better in the way that they approach mental health and the way they approach PTSD, especially in terms of the army. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's anywhere near that. But I think they're striving towards it. I think they see a real need for it. They understand this epidemic that's going on. And they want to stop it, but I think they don't know how yet, and it's all a bit of trial and error until we get the perfect program, the perfect, organisations to step in and do what needs to be done. We're just going to have to trial and error along the way. But I think that they are focusing on it, and they will start to focus on it. I think this has opened their eyes a little bit more to what's going on, but they weren't blind.
And you touched on this just before, but what does Yom HaZikaron actually mean to you?
Yom HaZikaron is very meaningful to me. It's the reason we get to go on our trips to Israel, the reason we get to experience any part of Israel, or live safely as a Jew in Australia. I live here safely because I know that I have people across the world who are fighting every second to make sure that we're safe, to make sure that we have someone protecting us, make sure people can go for breakfast in the morning, make sure that people can go to school for the day and not have to think about it. The amount of children we send on gap year programs, on birthright programs, on anything. And we think about the programs, we think about the money, we think about all the things that go into it. But the one thing we don't think about is the people who are standing on the borders, making sure that we can go on these programs, making sure our flights can land in the country, making sure that we can live safely and sleep and do all the things that we want to do. And I think as much as we take from the country, we should be giving back to it. And Yom HaZikaron is a day to remember those people. It's a day to think about all the people who sacrificed everything, sacrificed their lives, their families, everything who they were, because they believed in the state of Israel.